Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel High Risk Photography, and this is the continuation of my previous video, Know Your DSLR Camera to Shoot in Manual Mode, Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. This is Part 3. As I told you already, this is the video for the beginners in the field of photography. So earlier videos I discussed about what is a DSLR camera and what are the sensor sizes and what are the camera available, and today I'm going to discuss about the crop factor of the various types of sensors. Okay, already I discussed in my earlier video about the sensor type and sensor sizes. The full frame sensor dimension is 36 mm by 24 mm, and crop sensor is 24 by 16 mm, and the micro four thirds is the half of the full frame sensor, and the 1-inch sensor is just much lesser than the other sensors. Based on that, now I'm going to explain about the crop factor of the sensors. Okay, when you take a full frame camera, for example, I am having a Nikon D810, that is a full frame camera. So the sensor size in that camera is 36 by 24. So when I put the 50 mm lens in that camera, that gives me a 50 mm focal length. Okay, so the same lens, when I put it on a crop sensor body, that will give you a different focal length because of the sensor size. The 50 mm lens in full frame gives the 50 mm focal length. The same lens will give you a different focal length. What will be the focal length for the crop sensor camera? That will become 75 mm. So why this happening? Because of the sensor size. Same way, the micro four thirds system is a completely different system. There's a half of the size of the full frame. So when I put a 25 mm lens on a micro four thirds, that will become 50. What is the crop factor for all these cameras? When I put a 50 mm lens in a full frame camera, that gives a full 50, exactly a full 50 millimeter focal length. The 50 mm lens gives you the exact 50 millimeter focal length on a full frame body. The same lens will give you 75 millimeter focal length on a crop sensor body. The crop factor for this is 1.5 because the size is different from full frame to crop sensor body. When you multiply 50 millimeter lens with a 1.5, you will get the crop sensor focal length in the DX body. That means 50 times 1.5 will become 75. So the same way, the half of the size, the full frame sensor, is a micro four thirds sensor. So when you put a 25 millimeter lens on a micro four thirds camera, that will become double the amount. The full frame equivalent crop factor for the micro four thirds sensor is 2. So when you multiply by 2, that will become 50. When you put a 25 millimeter or a micro four thirds lens camera, that will become 50. The same way, when you go to the 1-inch sensor, what will happen? The micro four thirds camera is completely a different system. Okay, everyone knows the Canon G7X Mark III. Now that is the focal length for that lens. That's a fixed lens, but the focal length for that lens is 8.8 to 36.6. So what will happen when you put what is the crop factor for that camera is, I calculated that was 2.73. That's why the calculation for the crop factor for the equivalent to the full frame. So the sensor size are very much important. Based on the sensor size, your focal length will completely change. So based on that, so when you use a full frame lens on a crop sensor body, nothing will happen, only the focal length will be much bigger and it will 1.5 crop factor. So this is all about the sensor type, guys. Okay, this is the crop factor for all the sensors. So when you buy a camera, think about it, and the lens also, when you buy a lens or a camera, this will be the crop factor for the various types of camera. Once you buy a full frame lens for a full frame camera, and the same lens can be used on a crop sensor body also, but the crop factor will be 1.5 and the focal length will be 1.5 focal length. One more thing I want to tell you, the lens type also, there are some full frame lenses, there are some DX lenses. So some lenses are especially made for the DX cameras. Even though when you buy the DX lenses, the crop factor will be the same. The full frame lens, you can fix it on a DX camera. The DX lenses, you cannot put it on a full frame camera. When you put the DX lens on a full frame camera, it will give a vignetting problem. Okay, I'll talk about this in my future video. What will happen when you put a full frame lens on a DX body, and the DX lens when you put it on a full frame body, I'll explain in my future video. Okay, to get all my videos, guys, okay, please subscribe my channel, like and share, and just see you soon.